Friday, February 3rd. This podcast covers the next 10 days and it covers much of the country. You're listening to Weather with Enthusiasm. A brutal Arctic high is headed into the country, has already affected the country. Here in the mid part of the country, we have something phenomenal that's going to be going on in the New England area. This is something that usually goes on in the upper Midwest, but this time around, it's going on in New England. These are temperatures, unbelievable temperatures. These are temperatures that normally occur. Again, they normally occur in North Dakota, Minnesota. There are places, temperatures, I saw places where the European model, the forecasts are calling for temperatures going down to 30 degrees below zero, such as in Gray, Maine. We have wind chills going down to 62 degrees below zero in that area. This is stuff that's even in Minnesota. This is not normal. It's a rarity, and it's happening in the New England area. What's been interesting about this year, an interesting phenomena that I have noticed is that we get some storms which have been producing a lot of snow, and they've been occurring during times when the jet stream does not help out at all with that. The jet stream does not reflect big storms. In January, we had a jet stream for the Midwest, East Coast as well. We had a jet stream that went pretty much from west to east. It's not a jet stream that's favorable for big storms, but nonetheless, the Midwest and even the South states managed to get a couple, more than a couple, a few large storms, ice storms, an ice storm in the south, a large snowstorm in the south, pretty much in the same area, and a large snowstorm in the plains, despite the fact that the Arctic air was locked up north. And here we go now with a situation which ideally should be producing, really, not just ideally, that this is a situation that normally does produce big storms, but it's not. We had this before as well, back in the late December, that Arctic outbreak for days in advance. The forecasters were calling for blizzards, not just blizzards, but high snowfall accumulations in many places in the Midwest. But at the last minute, it turned out the system did not have the Gulf moisture that people thought it would have, and it ended up producing much less snow than what we thought. So now we have on the East Coast a very cold air mass, although they did see a lot of snow earlier, so we can't totally rule that out. What we have going on over the next couple of weeks, we have a big warm-up. This warm-up is going to happen as quickly as the Arctic air heads into the East Coast. It's going to leave just as quick. And we have a warm-up coming for next week. This warm-up covers really anywhere from the Rockies eastward. That's for sure. I have not had a chance to look at the West Coast. Usually whatever's going on here, the opposite's happening on the West Coast. We're going to have a series of storms that returns to the West Coast. We haven't seen that for 2 weeks. But the storms return. They're going to be affecting areas a little bit further north than the areas that they affected last month. And we have cities which still have seen very little snowfall for this week. In regards to the Arctic air mass tonight, we have actual records which will be broken in many locations in New England. This is something very phenomenal. This is a piece of the polar vortex that has broken off and is in the New England area. Headed up to this week, as we go through the week, first of all, we had temperatures below zero in many locations earlier this morning. And as we go in the next couple of days, winds are going to quickly become southwest over in the St. Louis area, Chicago area. We have temperatures going into the mid to upper 60s in Arkansas by Monday. Temperatures in the low 60s for Missouri by Monday. Temperatures are, and this system, by the way, has very little rain with it, not much moisture at all. A very strange system. Usually these types of storm systems, you have severe weather on the southeast portion with snow on the northwest. I can't tell you that I've checked Louisiana to verify that there's no severe weather, but I do know that in the mid-Mississippi Valley, there is like a shortage of moisture. It seems like there shouldn't be much snow either on the backside. Could be some snow flurries in the Chicago area on Sunday, but nothing more than that. Really the big story right now, 3 big stories, I would say 4 big stories. A train of storms is about to go into the Pacific Ocean, the Pacific coast. We have this tremendous Arctic air. The National Weather Service is calling it once in a lifetime for places in Maine. It's the National Weather Service in Maine that's calling it that, but we have temperatures dropping 26 below zero, 27 below zero in places in New York. We mentioned 30 below zero in Maine, but it's really that whole area. We have wind chills going down to 102 below zero for Mount Washington. It's not a normal situation at all. And then we have the warm-up that comes immediately afterwards. We have a weakening La Nina, which is happening, which many forecasters say that the tremendous precipitation that fell on the West Coast and moved further south than usual, which brought the extreme drought and the exceptional drought, brought that to an end. They still have a significant drought, but it's not extreme, it's not exceptional, it's more bearable. The current drought is more bearable, and we have that La Nina, which is weakening, and that's responsible for this. Now, going up to next weekend, this is a far way out, but both the European model and the GFS model have a tremendous nor'easter moving up the coast with heavy snow on the backside, with snowfall accumulations approaching 20 inches in places in New York, especially Vermont. Some areas may be getting 20 inches. Of course, the storm track is not set right now. So if the coastal cities want snow, next weekend on Sunday, that's both the European model and the GFS model. There's a good setup right now for heavy snow. I know it's about 10 days out, so it's difficult to really have all the details on that, but a solid 1 to 2 feet, maybe even more. That's what would currently be in the forecast. Long-range forecasters right now are forecasting a return to above normal temperatures. Again, next weekend, we continue with that theme. The theme of the big storms have been happening without the real cold Arctic air. By the end of February, there are indicators in the stratosphere that we could be seeing a return to extreme Arctic. We might have an extreme Arctic outbreak the end of February or the early of March. The truth is, I know very little about it other than what some of the mainstream long-term forecasters are forecasting. It should be pointed out that there are places in Nevada that might be getting thunder snow around noon on Sunday. The National Weather Service in Reno, Nevada says there's between a 10 to 15% chance that some of those areas could be seeing that. And for now, we do have some heavy snow, some winter storm watches, which are in effect for that area starting Saturday around 7 p.m. going through Sunday. Some of those areas could be getting 12 to 18 inches of snow, perhaps even more than that. We have blizzard warnings, which are in effect for places in Maine, despite the fact only 1 inch of snow is expected to accumulate. The winds are very strong and there's plenty of snow on the ground, and the same is true for Fairbanks, Alaska. You have been listening to the podcast Weather with Enthusiasm. This trailer was updated at the very end of January 2023. We have 2 things going on. We have evaporative cooling and we also have dynamic cooling, and the 2 are coming together to produce a major snowstorm in the deep south. The only time you could blame cold air on climate change is when it's a result of the stratosphere warming, which is what causes all the Arctic air to come down south. The way to get a 6-inch snowstorm here in the Midwest and in the Southern Plains has always been you need 3 ingredients. It's hard to believe the numbers that are being forecasted. Several additional feet of snow is expected by Monday morning.
Yes!
Hey, we have a special guest on our show. What is your name?
Katabis.
27.1 barometric pressure. Feet of snow are falling in Japan.
Oh my God.
That's a time of celebration. Just Google weather with enthusiasm and they're all going to come up.